Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice of radio. So today, we're going to be having a look at a new Muck card coming out in Team Up in the not-too-distant future. Now, our translations here do come from the lovely David Hochmann over at limitlesstcg.com/translations. And there's a bit to like about Muck. Now, the 130 HP is nice because it leaves you out of range of something like Zoroark and Buzzwole, which is all quite good. The retreat cost of 4 gives you access to Brawny Pad, which means that you get an extra 50 HP because you've got a retreat cost of 4. So that's going to give you a nice little bit of extra bulk. The Psychic typing means you're hitting weakness against stuff like Buzzwole. And the weakness to Psychic, yeah, Garboda's running around, but you can't win them all, ladies and gentlemen. The basics here are looking pretty nice. But it is the ability with which we are primarily concerned. Poison Sac. And essentially, if your opponent's Pokemon evolve or devolve, they are still poisoned. It is a way to stop your opponent evolving or devolving out of poison. I know, right? This is very, very nice if you're a deck that's relying on poison. And we have seen this. We have seen decks relying on poison running around. There was a moderately large regional in Europe not too long ago. Well, there was a special event in Lille, and Carl Peters actually went and won with kind of a spread deck that was built around using Survivor and Poison Barb. Now, you had the usual Tapu Koko and Latias as spreaders, of course. I believe I made a video about this, so I'll try and remember to pop a link to that one in the description. But the theory here was quite simple, that your opponent attacks, they get hit with Poison Barb. Poison Barb means that they are poisoned. And then you've got Survivor, and Survivor from Burning Shadows puts 1 extra damage counter on them between turns when they are poisoned. Of course, in the expanded format, we've got Burbank City Gym, which puts 2 more on between turns and is even better. Now, whether you've got room on your bench for a whole bunch of Survivor and a Muck is a whole different question. But certainly, if you're running around on a deck which revolves around poison, this is a very, very nice thing to play. And we did have a special event in Europe, a fairly well-attended special event, which was won by a deck that relied on poison. So it can happen. And at this stage, there's probably a bunch of you that are drawing a parallel between this and the Stadium card, Sea of Nothingness. Obviously, Sea of Nothingness is a significantly better effect than Muck. Special conditions are not removed when Pokemon evolve or devolve. Now, firstly, that kind of hurts yourself as well as your opponent. But secondly, it's a Stadium card. And we don't like this because we want to be using Shrine of Punishment. Or we want to be using maybe Brooklet Hill. Or in the expanded format, we want to be using Burbank City Gym. Sea of Nothingness has seen very, very little play since it was released, and it didn't even see play in Carl Peters' deck. And the reason it didn't see play in Carl Peters' deck was obviously because he was playing Shrine of Punishment. He was playing a spreading deck. Shrine of Punishment is a really good way to spread damage around to EXs and GXs. Could he have found space on his bench for Muck? I don't know. Now, the other thing to remember is we've got a lot of ways around special conditions at the moment. Everybody's playing Guzma, which is a switch. Bunch of people are playing Tate and Liza, which is a switch. And then there's still things like Escape Rope and Switch just running around a little bit as well. And these will get out of poison. But in the early game, we've all had that moment where we rely on evolving out of poison. Now, in terms of devolving, it's not really an issue at the moment because we lost Devolution Spray. And Devolution Spray was really the best way to do it. We do have the Porygon Z from Burning Shadows that devolves as an ability, but that devolves your opponent's Pokemon. Having said that, and it is a very, very niche situation. I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. But if you are playing a deck that relies on poison and plays Porygon Z to evolve your opponent's Pokemon, Then you can essentially use Porygon Z to devolve them, and then knowing that they won't lose poison from the Pokemon in the active, which could be relevant. That could be, the last bit of poison that KOs a 60 HP Zorua. As always, it's a very niche situation. I thought it was worth kind of shouting about. Really, this is a good ability, and I don't think there's any argument that it's a good ability. The question is it a good ability to see play? In the early turns of the game, your opponent is likely to be evolving out of it, but as the game goes on, that is going to get less and less likely. And then, of course, you're a stage 1, so it's going to take you a turn or two to get Muck onto the field. And we do have Sea of Nothingness to use instead. I do like this, but I don't know who's going to make room for it in their deck. But maybe the attack can save us. Well, the attack here, for 1 Psychic Energy, does 40 damage, plus poison, and you put 2 damage counters instead of 1 for poison between turns. And this is actually a really nice attack. It's for a single energy. It's on a single prize Pokemon that's got 130 HP, which, like we said, is potentially relevant here in terms of just keeping you alive for another turn. And you can get some damage on the field. 40 damage is fine. Doubled up with weakness is 80 against something like a Buzzwole. Add a Choice Band, and against a Buzzwole GX, you're doing 140, but then, of course, the double poison kicks in to go up to 160. And actually, you can really be building up a lot of damage here with Muck very quickly, because you've got Seviper, which means that instead of 20 damage for poison, it's 30 damage for poison. And you've got Shrine of Punishment that puts 1 damage counter on between turns. And then you could, of course, use multiple Seviper, and by using Muck, they can't evolve or devolve out of it. And then all of a sudden, you've actually got this really tricky Pokemon that is doing an awful lot of damage quite quickly for a single energy, and really taking advantage of poison. My question for this keeps coming back to, is anybody going to use this over the alternatives? Because if you want a stage 1 Pokemon that's attacks for a single psychic energy, how about Garbodor? Now, there's going to be plenty of games where your opponent is able to not put items in the discard so they don't have to use Garbodor, but there's going to be plenty of games where they don't. We've got Nihilego. Now, admittedly, Nihiligo's best attack is when your opponent's got 2 prizes remaining, but you've still got Nightcap, which is Confusion and Poison for 1 energy. Incidentally, Muck would be a good partner for this. And let's not forget we got Nihilego GX, which would also make a decent partner here. And we've got Salazzle, who does poison when you evolve up as well. There are plenty of Pokemon that do poison, and if you're not doing poison, you got Poison Barb. I just worry that the attack isn't quite good enough, and that the ability isn't quite useful enough, and that you don't do quite enough damage, and it's not quite worth the bench space. That's where I keep coming down with Muck here. Now, what's really annoying is Alolan Grimer and Alolan Muck are different to regular Grimer and regular Muck, because otherwise you would be able to take advantage of the Alolan Muck, either the one which blocks abilities that we've got now, or the one that's coming out in the next set, that when you evolve it up, you look at the top 6 cards of your opponent's deck and discard as many item cards as you find. Alolan Muck seems to be getting all the love. I'm giving regular Muck between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would, of course, be barbaric. It is not a terrible card. And poison absolutely does see a little bit of play and a little bit of use. I just think in so many ways it is almost good enough and almost going to see play. But then at the last minute, most people are just going to veer away from this to play something else instead. I would like to be wrong, though. So, ladies and gentlemen, have a chat about it in the comment section. Do go nuts, but please do remember the most important rule: to be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv patreon.com/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all of that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays for some more Wassie action. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.